gonna let the beast out, caged up, held down for far too long. You ready? Be ready. Breathe in, smell the victory. Breathe out, let go of all the doubt you feel. Believe, reject defeat. Don't ever be afraid to be a legend. When it's on the line, seize the moment when the moment's right. Come on, you're in this fight. Don't ever be afraid to be a legend. Stand the test of time. Seize the moment when the moment's right. Come on, believe you're in this fight. Don't ever be afraid to be a legend. Hold up, are you listening? Focus in, we're looking to make history. Let's go, we know.
As the song says, hold up. It's Tuesday night, and you guys know where that. Listen, if I sound like I'm in a chipper mood tonight, more energetic, it's just because I am. You guys just don't understand. You know, I had my surgery about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks ago. And for the last 2 weeks, I've been feeling awful, just trying to recover. So the pain is finally starting to subside. I'm controlling it with, a couple of ibuprofens a day, that kind of stuff. There's a little bit of squeamishness, that kind of stuff. There's sharp pains come every once in a while. But for the most part, LG is back. And sometimes that's good. And sometimes for some, that's not so good. But that's okay. That's okay. It's a big world, right? Everybody's got their role to play in it. And on Tuesday night, this is my role, to spend some time with you guys and talk about not just high school football, but some of the important topics related to high school football and that affects it. So with that said, let me bring on one of our super fans, George Braddock. How you doing, George?
What's up, Larry? How are you? Glad you're back in the battle.
I'm good. Hey, George, did you notice my name on the screen? There's something right next to it.
A website.
A website.
You just launched. It's
going through what the retail industry calls a soft launch, right? So it's there and most of it works, but there's still broken links and that kind of stuff. So I'm a one-man guy. So I'm working on it as fast as I possibly can. But we're making some great strides. You should see this thing when it's fully operational. It's going to be a thing of beauty. It's going to have some interactive things built into it. Like I am determined to basically have a pick'em contest built into this thing. Okay. So when people watch our show on Tuesday nights or the Thursday night Viking show during the season and they want to have some fun, they're going to be able to register on this site. It's going to be a free service, obviously. This is LG. Everything's free. So they're going to register for the site. And then once a week, when we populate the site with games, they go there and easily pick which games they want to win, that kind of stuff. We may even tie some prizes to it, that kind of stuff. So it's just going to be something fun to add to the excitement as we talk about football throughout the season. And, that kind of stuff. Yeah, everybody does it their own special way. And I've seen other shows do it with regular paper and pen, but this is the first time it's going to be done on a website like this where people see the results as soon as the games are over for the week. They're going to be able to see the results, and there's going to be a full-fledged leaderboard posted right there on the screen. So that's going to add to the trash talking excitement.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. We have you are working on some sort of forum, right?
Correct.
Allow that sort of discourse too. That'd be fun. Yeah, I think it's going to be good.
So I'm also building into it a service where, guys like you, other super fans throughout the state, whatever, will be able to log in with their smartphone, right? Because I'll consider you guys a de facto part of the media now, right? So we're going to create our own PreGame Blitz / Viking Nation poll, statewide poll. And so it's going to be recruited people that really follow high school football, like me and you, others throughout the state. You're going to be able to log in with your phone and quickly choose a top 10 for each classification. And as soon as that's done, it's going to be published to the website, and boom, another great service. We're not going to rely on one or two guys from the AJC to tell us who the top 10 game teams are every year.
I like it, and you're getting outside of what you just said. You're getting outside of the perimeter, so to speak,
That's right.
to get some feedback across the state.
Yep,
Love it.
absolutely. And then, those are a couple of cool things, but I've got some other tricks up my sleeve that I'll be unveiling once we go live with it. So you guys stay tuned because there's a lot of excitement happening around the pregame blitz and Viking Nation. So anyway, welcome Tuesday night, guys. I'm your host, Larry Godwin. You see on the screen, my counterpart, George Braddock. Normally we have other guys join us, but Justin Haley is it's baseball season this time of year, right? So he's coaching a team. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have him back on Tuesday nights. Now, the other super fan that we usually have is Cole Moore. He's busy with a new family. Sometimes he can join us. Sometimes he can't, that kind of stuff. Franklin Webb says, is the website up where I can check it out? Franklin Webb, you can check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just right there, what you see on the screen, right next to my name, www.pregameblitz.com. Don't do it now because you're watching the show.
Save it for later.
Unless you open up another window where you can see it, or you're maybe on a laptop or a phone or whatever. Now, one of the things I forgot to tell you, George, is there's a countdown timer for the next game. There is a poll, like a flash poll that I put up there now. Should the GHSA go back to 6 classes? That's already working. So there's lots of pieces to this website already working, but I wanted to tell the viewers that there's a good portion of it not working yet. So be patient. So it's a soft launch.
Right.
So, anyway, appreciate the question, Franklin. Hey, that is actually gets us to our topic for the night, which is, George, tomorrow, I believe the GHSA Board of Trustees is going to be voting, or at least discussing, and I think they might be taking a vote tomorrow to bring the GHSA back down to 6 classifications. So we're currently at 8. And so they're talking about taking this back down to 6 classifications. And we'll talk about why they're doing it, reading between the lines, the pros and cons of doing that, why now, that kind of stuff. So put your thinking cap on, be thinking about that. And while you're thinking about that, I want to go ahead and thank our sponsors. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to take you off the screen for a second. Guys, we've got some fantastic sponsors. We really do. Like Pepsi Brewing Company. Brewing Company, is that the right word? Pepsi Beverage Company, I should say. These guys do a fantastic job. They're our title sponsor for this year. They make some fantastic products like Pepsi, Mountain Dew Rockstar, Mountain Dew Energy. If you noticed a couple of weeks ago, I actually had a Pepsi cam as well, and I may bring that back from time to time. It's a second. I'm going to introduce a second, third, and sometimes even a fourth camera around the studio, or maybe even some remote location. So you never know what LG's got up his sleeve. The remote location, the remote cam, I should say, could be in different parts of the state. You never know. We got a lot of tricks up our sleeves, guys. No other show is doing this. No other show. Well, we're one of the few, we're one of the few shows that actually does show prep. Others around here don't. I'm just saying, I'm just saying. So anyway, we're going to have a good time. We really are. So we thank Pepsi for coming on board this year. We also want to thank Tim Neesmith. We affectionately call the guy Stickman. If you've ever met Tim Neesmith, you know why we call him that. He's got a company called A Shade of Perfection where he specializes in custom shades and blinds. If you have a need for that, 229-251-3479. Thank you, Tim Neesmith, for supporting our show, man. The Migraine and Spine Clinic of Valdosta. Guys, patients choose to go see Josh and Justin because they do a fantastic job of helping you get rid of your acute migraines. I can't promise you that they'll take care of it in minutes, but I've heard that they take care of it in a very, very short period of time. So if you suffer from migraines, give these guys a call. The Migraine and Spine Clinic of Valdosta, 229-333-9838. And by the way, all these sponsors will be, you're able to see them on the new website, PreGameBlitz.com, where you can actually click on the banner and it will take you to their website that includes their contact information. We also want to thank Kyle Conger at White Oak Investment. Kyle and I had a talk today about, I called him up. I said, listen, the market's doing this up and down, up and down. It's way up today. Tomorrow it might be way down. I said, listen, I'm ready. I think I'm ready to pull the trigger and do some different things with additional funds, but I don't know when I should do it. So he calmed me down, talked me off the ledge. He says, listen, let's do this. What do you think about that? So I want to thank Kyle Conger at White Oak Investment. He does a great job. Caller, hold on 1 second. I'll be right with you. So Kyle does a great job at White Oak Investment, and you'll be, guys, listen, if you really want sound financial advice, give Kyle a call. That's the bottom line, 229-850-8848. We also want to thank Matthew Godwin at Verizon Wireless on Perimeter Road. If you have a need for iPhones, Androids, accessories, or he now deals in small business accounts, so he can help you out there. Our newest sponsor is Steve Nichols, Freedom with Steve Nichols. Yeah, some of you guys, because I know you, some of you guys are political junkies, just like I am. So when I'm getting up and getting ready in the morning, brushing my teeth, getting ready for the day, Steve's got a great show that airs on Facebook, Discord. I'm not sure if he's on YouTube yet, but he's got his own website. Check him out. freedomwithstevenichols.live. freedomwithstevenichols.live. Very entertaining show. Yeah, that's all I'll say. It's a very entertaining show. And Steve is not afraid to go at it with callers. He gives his opinion and he just tells you exactly what's on his mind. And that's what we need in today's day and time, right? Of course, G Nation Media, that's me. We have a growing list of digital assets that you could sponsor, reach a wider, deeper audience. Viking Nation, PreGameBlitz.com. My national venture with Prep Gridiron Logistics National, HSFB.com, and a non-sports related podcast called Plow the Field. And you can listen to that on any of your favorite podcasting services like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast Service, any of them, Spotify. We're in all those places, right? So it's a little bit unique, but it's basically it's basically a humorous way and a serious way at the same time that talks about my personal life experiences. I'm 51 now, born in a foreign country, grew up with an Asian mom that escaped a war-stricken land like Vietnam, and my experiences growing up in the South and how those experiences apply to everyday life. So that's an interesting podcast. I think it's interesting content. So if you're interested, check it out. Plow the Field Podcast. There's no website. Just go to your favorite podcasting service and check it out. So we want to thank our sponsors. So let's go ahead and get to our topics. Caller, are you with me?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Shane, this is Shane Thomas, guys. He is a sport. Shane, are you officially the sports editor?
Yes, sir. I've been the sports editor for 3 years now.
The sports editor at the Valdosta Daily Times. Many people in Valdosta know you because we see you roaming the sidelines and basketball courts, tennis courts. If there is a sporting event in this town, Shane Thomas is usually at it, whether it's the Blazers, Vikings, Wildcats, Valiants. You're there, and we want to thank you for joining our broadcast tonight, Shane.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, I got on the screen at the same time. You can't see him because you're calling in, but I've got another, what I call a super fan, a guy named George Braddock. So he and I are going to be talking to you, double teaming you tonight as we talk about this topic. So are you game?
Yeah, I'm down.
I got you. Hey, Shane, tonight's topic, I want to get your take on it in a couple of minutes here. The GHSA probably tomorrow is going to discuss, if not vote on, redoing their classification system in the next couple of years when it comes right back around time to do it again in 2024, and reducing the number of classes back down to 6. They currently have 8, but now they're looking at moving it back down to 6. What's your original thoughts on that when you first heard about it?
Man, that it's interesting. I mean, obviously we only get to 7A here, but I mean, I think immediately my first thought is you're going to have bigger regions and probably, strengthen the level of competition. And, in some people's cases, it may not be, they may take their licks more often, but I think it would actually help the competitive balance if you had bigger regions.
That's right. George, did you have a question?
Well, let me frame it up this way. So the stated goal, I'm looking at an AJC article, was to help the travel burden costs, particularly in the southern part of the state, and also reduce student time away from the classroom, is my understanding. And I know we like to view things through a football lens, and that's cool because we're big time fans and stuff. But to me, it's just interesting. I wonder how you feel like, Shane or Larry, that would accomplish, that if you were to drop from, say, 7A just to cap it off at 6A, because geography is what it is.
Right.
So I'm not real sure how we cut it so that you accomplish that. Maybe it does something from 6A to 4A, but I don't know how that fixes things from the top class and the bell curve ends, right?
Yeah. So Shane, you correct me if I'm wrong. I think I'm right on this. In the past, and the way they've historically done reclassification is, let's say that they have the 7 classes now, right? So let's say there's 430 schools throughout the state, and they all have a student population. So what they've done historically is take the top 10 to 12%, and they call them 7A. They take the bottom 10 to 12%, and they call them single A. And then the middle guys, the middle 5, they evenly divide them up among the rest of the classifications. So that's how they've historically done it with 7 classifications. Now, the reason why I say there's currently 8 is because in the playoffs, they currently do a split between private and public, which in effect creates 8 classes now.
Yeah.
Instead of 7. So what I would imagine they're going to do, Shane, is they're going to still take the same student population number, and then instead of taking the top 10 to 12%, they may have to increase that now to the top 15 to 18% on the ends, and then slice it evenly in the middle again. And so now instead of so let's say they take the top 15 to 20% on the end, so that's 30 to 40%. So you have, in effect, 55 to 60% to divide among 4 middle classes, if you will. Shane, what do you think about that scenario I just pointed out? How likely do you think that would happen?
I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Especially when you mentioned that, that split at the lower part of it. I don't know if it necessarily would make travel all that easier. I think you'd have more teams maybe in certain areas that would be lumped in together, like you said, in that middle part where everybody would be kind of grouped. So, yeah, I see what you're saying. I think that could happen for sure.
Yeah, so there are some pros and cons. Now, here's how I think it could help with travel. Okay, let's take 1 6A and 1 7A. So everybody knows the 1 7A schools by now, right? You got Camden, Richmond Hill, Valdosta, Lowndes, Colquitt. Who else am I leaving out?
I think that's it. There's 5, right?
Yeah, there's 5. Okay, so but the 1 6A schools, you got Lee County, you got Tift County, and then some of the Middle Georgia schools, right? And then Thomas County Central because of the multiplier. And so if they went to 6 classes, you could easily see many of those schools probably join that new region, right? Certainly Tift County, because they were on the bubble. They were on the bubble anyway and went down to 6A, right? So they would certainly rejoin our region if you expanded the teams that's included in the largest class. So basically, those bubble teams now, I was looking at the teams at the top of the 6A classification now, right? So logically, you would think that the teams that were at the largest 6A schools are probably in, I'm going to use this word very loosely, in danger of being moved to the highest classification if this new proposal passes, right? So that would probably be the top 15 to 20 schools. And Tift County would definitely be in there. I don't think Lee County would make it because they're around 1,700, 1,800 students. I think.
they were there. Yeah.
So that poses another interesting problem for Lee County, which they may get isolated even more. So I don't know.
Yeah, and Larry, to back up a minute too, this has been brought on. It seems as by pressure from Congress or state legislature by way of the bill 328 that proposes to have the GHSA pick up schools travel in excess of 75 miles or more for competitive events, not just for football, but for all sports. And the president of the GHSA said we'd be bankrupt by the end of football season.
Right. And I could see that. I could see that if they had to pick up the travel tab for all these sports teams, that's what's really, that threat is what's really given this proposal new legs. There is a fire under the GHSA now, like I've never seen in a long, long time. They are highly motivated to get this done because now, money talks. And the state guys are saying, guys, get this done or we're going to pass this bill and you're going to be on the hook to pay these teams for all these travel expenses.
Yeah. Which would essentially shut them down. Yeah.
Shane, let me get your thoughts on this. If they went to 6 classifications, and they combine some of these top 6A schools, current 6A schools, and they moved them up to the highest classification, which could include guys, Shane, it could include teams like Glenn Academy. It could include Brunswick, Effingham, South Effingham. What do you think the chances are now that a new region would be created on the coast that would include Richmond Hill, Camden, Glenn Academy, Brunswick, Effingham, South Effingham? What do you think about that and taking them out of our region altogether?
Now that I could get behind that. I actually like that idea. That would make a lot of sense, especially when you talk about the logistics and travel. Like that's perfect.
Absolutely. It's basically an I-95 corridor, right?
That's right.
Yeah, for sure.
So then on this side, you basically have the I-75 region over here, which would include Valdosta, Lowndes, Colquitt. I'm going to throw Tift back in there. It's probably, it could include Lee County if they chose to move up. It certainly definitely would include teams like Houston County.
That's what
and possibly Northside Warner Robins.
Yeah. And then at that point, you really get into, counties like Henry County, when you have 11 or 12 high schools that are all 5, 6A. I mean, so that area probably wouldn't see a lot of change because they already have, if you look at their schedules, they already have 7 or 8 region games.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So guys, let me kind of ask a different type of question that's being asked by a couple of our viewers, Kenneth Hurst and Franklin Webb. They're basically the same question. Shane, one of the topics, I'm going to actually put this on the screen. Shane, you won't be able to see this, but I'll read this out to you. This was on the GHSA's website today. GHSA President Glenn White has called a meeting of the Board of Trustees for Wednesday, March 16th. The meeting, which will begin at 1:30, will be held electronically. The agenda will include financial issues related to Senate Bill 328, number of classifications, and this is key, guys. This is the wild card that we don't really know how this is going to play out, and the use of the multiplier for the next reclassification cycle. So it looks like they're taking a look at either changing or doing away with this multiplier. I don't think they're going to do away with it, but I think they're going to come back with a lower multiplier because I think, some of these affluent counties, Shane, some of these affluent schools like Buford and Blessed Trinity, that the big money schools, right? They have the ear of these the ears of these legislators, and they're saying, hey, we're being punished because we just happen to have all these great athletes, right? We still have the same number of kids that we had last year, but now we're being forced to jump 3 classifications. I'll bet you Shane, I bet you they end up lowering the multiplier as well.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree. I think if you, with all those schools, like you said, talking about that, like, you know, if you go down with the multiplier, you won't have as big a shift, like you said, as, you know, jumping 3 classifications, things like that. So yeah, I agree with you. That's right.
Now here's the guys. Here is the when I call this a wild card. This is what I meant. Right now, the multiplier is set at 3.0, and it has forced a lot of schools into much higher classifications, and it's forced a number of schools in that largest classification, 7A, right? So if the multiplier is reduced down to 2 or 2.5, that might be enough to bring those private schools back down a class, and as a result, a semi-large public school may be pushed and forced up into the highest class. So that's the wild card that I'm talking about. That's the thing that could turn this on its ear once again. And it's really interesting to me, guys, that, you know, the GHSA went through great pains redoing this classification stuff this way around, and it's going to be a 2-year endeavor.
It's so interesting, Larry. I'll always go back to just the way our state is laid out, you know, I-20 around the perimeter,
right,
in those counties, including Gwinnett, which we just talked about. Gwinnett alone has almost 1 million people. Do you know how many counties in South Georgia that would take to equal? We could almost cut off 16 South and get that many people with 20, 30 counties. It's hard to figure out one piece of legislation that can address those demographics, right? The way we're set up geographically. So we're going to be crying down south because of inequities. And if we do accommodate too much on this side, then the north people are going to be a little bit frustrated because of like multipliers, how we've seen those things go. But it's going to be really challenging, in my opinion, to come up with something that works for both sides.
Yeah.
Of the state.
Here's Shane, here's the net effect, I think, for the largest classification. Let's just say our region, which currently is 17A. In the future, it could be 16A, which could include some of these other schools I've talked about a while ago. I think the net effect for us is going to be negligible, because if they end up creating another classification on the coast, that's going to take at least 2 schools out of our region. And if you replace them with Tift County and a couple of schools in Northside in the Warner Robins area, that, you know, you basically have a net gain of 1 school in the region. So that helps you out with 1 game on the schedule. But at the same time, you still have that long distance to go. So I don't really know how it helps with travel as far as us. Now, some of those smaller classes, like, you know, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5, that kind of stuff, there's a lot of those types of schools in South Georgia. So it will help with travel for those schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which was the stated reason behind it, you know, was again going back to costs and time out of the classroom for the students. And some of these rural areas, frankly, they need that time in the classroom, right?
Yeah. So Shane, let me get your thoughts while we still have you on a related topic. If they went back down to 6 classifications, how does that affect competitively? How does that affect Lowndes and Valdosta, if anything?
I think competitively, it just kind of, I mean, look at the region the way it is right now. I mean, you're talking maybe Richmond Hill may be the bottom. And I mean, that's just on paper. We're not even, you know, obviously we don't play the games on paper, but
right.
You know, you add, like, say you were to add, you know, the Houston counties or, you know, Northside Warner Robins, at least you're going to still have, like, it's going to be kind of a murderer's row. Like, you're going to have a tough game in region every single week once you get to region play. And I mean, obviously you're going to have schools that schedule tougher non-region anyway. You won't have as many non-region games, but
that's right.
Yeah.
I think competitively it'd be a good thing for that region in particular.
Gotcha. Hey, one last question for you, Shane. Let's stop talking about what's going to happen in a couple of years with this new classification and talk about this upcoming season for a second. As far as the local teams goes, because that's what your specialty is. So, Lowndes is graduating a lot of folks on the offensive side of the ball. I don't recall how many players Valdosta is graduating, but how do you project those two teams going into the new season, especially now since they've been reunited in the same region, and that Wintersville Classic game has an extra edge to it that it hasn't had for the last 5 or so years?
Yeah, I feel like this will be a year that I feel like it may be the most evenly matched possibly going into the season. Just because you don't have the veterans that maybe you had before. I mean, you'll have kids that have played in that game. I mean, but anytime you talk about taking out a Jakari Brown from that equation, a Chase Belcher from that equation.
Wait a minute. Shane, hold on. I got to stop you right there. Okay. I sometimes I do this to the folks on the screen. I'm going to put you in the penalty box and hit the mute button, right? just so I can gather my thoughts, because I can't believe the guy came on my show and said Lowndes and Valdosta is evenly matched. All you Viking fans, did you hear Shane Thomas just say that? All right, Shane, go ahead. You're out of the penalty box. Sorry about that.
I think just if you're talking just the base of the matchup, I think obviously you're going to have differences in terms of the size of the kids. I mean, that's been a big difference between the two schools in recent years. So I think, especially with Valdosta, they had a senior laden offensive line, probably one of the better O-lines they've had all year, in a long time.
Right.
And then on defense, they lost a lot of playmakers on that side. I think they like their underclassmen. They like those classes. They won't have, the GHSA constraints that they had last year. So I think there'll be some improvement there. They still have to find a quarterback.
Man, I love the way you just put that. They won't have their constraints they had last year, meaning they won't have that postseason ban.
Yeah, they won't have that. So, I mean, you'll have some added motivation there. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to get a bunch of kids motivated when they know they won't be in the playoffs, things like that. So I think, it'll be the first time in a while where there'll be some kids that are, kind of getting their first taste, as seniors that were underclassmen before.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how the matchup takes shape now. Cause I mean, Jakari won 4 classics as quarterback.
Yeah.
And Valdosta, was shut out in that game. So there's going to be a lot of, especially with them being in the same region now. It'll be interesting to see how they load up and how they look once they meet this season.
That's right. Man, I can't wait. I was just looking at Valdosta's schedule today because both Lowndes and Valdosta George has recently released their schedules.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them have some interesting and compelling non-region games. But George, I was looking at the region schedule, and when Shane called it a murderer's row, he was exactly right, man. Because you got back to back to back. You got, let's say Lowndes, I think we're starting out with Valdosta. And it was really weird because, we had one game that got canceled, so we had to find another game. And so we start with Valdosta, and the very next week, I believe we play a non-region game. And then after that, I think we play Colquitt and then Richmond Hill and then Camden, all back to back to back, guys. It's going to be crazy. And Shane, the thing that gets me about that region schedule, really not just for Lowndes, for all these Region 1 7A teams, George, is, those games are going to be so physical. And this year, there's not going to be an open week before the playoffs start. I'm kind of nervous about how our teams in this region are going to be beat up and injured going into the playoffs.
Valdosta, if this schedule I'm looking at is correct, they do have an off week between McEachern and Lowndes and the Wintersville Classic. But after that, it's back to back to back to back. Lowndes, Richmond Hill, Camden, Colquitt. I mean, that's some stout back to back to back to back. You know?
Yeah. So Shane, as you're doing your homework this year, prepping for the the off-season football previews, things like that, man, keep your eyes open for the depth that these two teams are building, because they're going to need it going through that region schedule heading into the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Like it's going to be a gauntlet. I mean, you think about, like, you know, there's so many different factors. What team's going to be up? What team's going to be down?
Yep.
Which team's going to surprise? You know, like right now, you know, there's so many variables because, you know, a lot of these teams don't play each other on a regular basis.
Right.
So, you know, Valdosta, you know, they see Colquitt every year, but they haven't seen Camden in a long time.
Yep.
You know, they haven't seen Richmond Hill since, I think, 2018, 19, somewhere in there. So, you're going to have those new matchups, and I'm excited for that.
All right. Shane, last question for you. Have you ever seen, maybe I should ask it this way. When was the last time you've ever seen a region of 5 teams and 3 of them had the same mascot?
and two of them have the same color scheme.
I know. Right? So George, there's the Valdosta Wildcats, the Camden Wildcats, and the Richmond Hill Wildcats.
Yeah. What do they call them? The blue cats and the yellow cats and the
black cats,
maybe.
I don't know. And then you got the mighty Vikings
and Packers
over there in this corner.
Packers, Hogs, something.
And those Packer Hogs. So,
Packer Hogs.
Shane, man, I want to have you back on a regular basis, dude. You have been a wealth of knowledge and fun to talk to. Well, with the exception of being put in the penalty box that one time.
No, I enjoy it, man. Thanks for having me on. I mean, it's been a while since the season, so it's good to catch up with you guys.
Yes, sir. Have a good night, man.
Yes, sir. You too.
See you, Shane. Bye-bye. Man, I tell you, George, he's fun to talk to, dude.
Yeah, I think if he can keep peeling off a little bit of time to stop by, he's going to, particularly as we get closer to the season.
That's right.
Not only that, but just with some of these issues we're talking about tonight with the GHSA, he would be a good resource, and look forward to chat with him in the future.
Yeah, speaking of the GHSA, I want to bring up something else on the screen. Can you see that?
Yep.
This was from the AJC article, right? So I want to bring your attention to this quote right here, starting right there in the past. And so this is from the president of the association, Glenn White, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
So he says, in the past, I have opposed 6 classes, and the reason being there would be more schools in the playoffs, more state champions, and that sort of thing with 8. Let me translate for you guys what that means. It means more money for the GHSA, right? And more money for the member schools, because now there are more teams in the playoffs. It doesn't matter if they're terrible games.
Right.
Those first round games, they're almost 90% just awful, right? They're just awful games.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I digress. So White said, at this point, this to me, George, this is key. This is why I'm so opposed to the GHSA. And I wish the state legislature would come in and basically take an axe to that organization and create a new one and start over. This next quote is why I just despise the GHSA so much. Listen to this. At this point, considering the travel issues, I would support 6, because that's the only way we can help people in South Georgia and in rural areas to give them enough people to play and not travel so much. That's what's best for the whole state. Did the state change all of a sudden?
That exactly.
Has this issue have we not been screaming about this issue for a decade?
Yeah.
And now he gets it.
Yeah,
he just admitted that in the past he's opposed it, but all of a sudden he had this clairvoyant thought, and it's like, oh yeah, there's people in South Georgia that we need to help out. No, this is coming about. He's having an about face because his organization is being threatened.
Correct. He sees an existential threat,
Exactly right.
He defined it. He said if we had to pick up the cost to travel, then for over 75 miles, we would be done before the fall sports were over.
Yeah. And so that last line gets me. That's what's best for the whole state.
For the whole state. See, that's what I was bringing up earlier. Like, how do you, I just don't see how you can't, there's not going to be a perfect fit.
That's right.
So we got to understand that going in. It's just going to be, how do you structure it where it, sometimes what's the saying? Sometimes the enemy of good is better.
That's right.
Sometimes you just have to say, all right, this is as good as it's going to get before it starts getting worse.
That's right.
For other reasons. So I don't envy them, by the way, because there's some tough decisions, but there's always going to be a bubble. There's always going to be some iniquity. I mean, I don't have a good answer.
Yeah. But when I read this article, especially this paragraph I just shared with you guys, it started to irritate me, because it's like, wait a minute, we've been screaming about this for years, and you turned a deaf ear to it. You even admitted in the past, I've opposed 6 classes. We even have a couple of classifications ago. Your executive director, Robin Hines, even supported going down to smaller classifications. And we thought it was a done deal. And all of a sudden it gets to the board of trustees or the executive committee or whoever. And they're like, no, we like the money that we've been raking in, and there's no way we're moving back. And now all of a sudden they're having a change of heart. It's not because they feel bad for South Georgia, or they want to do what's best for the whole state. No. This is to protect their little kingdom that they've built over the years. I've always been opposed to a private organization in structure being run by public employees, which basically is what the GHSA is, public employees, when they're not accountable to anybody because they're a private organization. They shield themselves behind the castle wall of the GHSA, and there is no accountability until now, when you have legislators threatening to do away, or at the very least, make the GHSA pick up the tab for these travel expenses. Now, all of a sudden, with the specter of going out of business, because he admitted it, this is going to drive us bankrupt and we have to pick up all this tab for travel. No, all of a sudden, let's just see if we can do something to help South Georgia out. Where the heck you been, dude?
Yeah, right.
So anyway, let me get off my soapbox here for a second. So I just don't like politicians that speak out of both sides of their mouth. And that was a political statement. That was, if I've ever heard one.
You could cut and paste that into a textbook for political science under equivocation.
Exactly right.
This is equivocation right here.
Exactly right. It would have been better for him just to be transparent about it. It's like, guys, we made this decision to go to 8 classes years ago because, we were just making more money. It was just too good to pass up. Schools were wanting us to hand out more trophies. And we thought it was a win-win for everybody. But, we're being threatened now with our organization's very existence. So because of that, we need to pull it back and go back to 6 classifications. I'm sorry for the other schools that have been making a little bit of money, extra money with more playoff games, things like that. We just don't have the ability to do that now. So we got to take one for the team and go back to 6. That would have been more palatable, George, if it had just been honest and transparent about it.
Yeah, I get it. I still, it's like you said a minute ago, and I'll paraphrase, but nothing's changed in our geography in the last few years. So how is all of a sudden dropping one, classification down and doing some sort of a divide by 6 or median number of FTE or whatever? How's that going to fix all the?
That's right.
You still have smaller schools that in proximity to other smaller schools, and I just see the same challenges. I don't know why dropping 7A is going to cure it.
Now, to his credit, Robin Hines, the executive director, I think he saw this coming years ago, and that's why he was trying. Now, this is me speculating, but he did support going back down and dropping to smaller classifications, right? but I think he saw what was coming and was trying to head it off at the pass, and they shot him down. So to his credit, Robin Hines did try to shrink the number of classes.
Yeah.
But he was opposed at the highest levels of the GHSA.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be curious to see what happens. This is tomorrow. So be curious to see if this thing gets any legs, which obviously has legs, but if it takes off running or where we go.
Right.
But I'm curious because I don't see it. I don't see that clear cut. This is what you need to do. Now you're finally listening. I don't know.
That's right.
That said, yeah, like you said a minute ago, we got a lot of interesting stuff coming up, for the next 2 years, and highlighting that is what you just said about the Wintersville Classic. I don't see you evenly matched necessarily, but man, that game doesn't need any more energy, and yet it's going to get it this year. That's got to be exciting to just be a Valdosta homer for a minute, even though I'm not. But man, that is going to be a game that I want to go to. I want to punt on our game. Well, I think we played Jenkins that week, Ware County, and I would rather go to it's a Martin, right? It's Concrete Palace this year.
All right, guys, let me put George in the penalty box here. Hey, guys, George can't, we can't hear. Guys, just between me and you, and let's just pretend George is not on the screen. I predict if they're scheduled to play Jenkins, that the week of the Wintersville Classic, I'm going to be getting a phone call from George trying to score some tickets. That's just my prediction. All right, let's bring it back. Am I way off base, George?
The only matter is how many can you get.
That's exactly right.
Am I that predictable? Oh, and by the way, Pepsi Brewing Company.
Yeah, I screwed that one up.
It's no, to be fair, they have beer.
Do they really? Root beer.
Mug.
So Doyer Deloach, if you're watching, man, I'm so sorry I butchered that name.
I had to bring that one back up. They do have root beer.
I got it. Hey, listen, just for Doyer, I'm going to do a product placement. 2 of them right now. Listen, guys, this is the deal right here. Can you see that? Rockstar and Mountain Dew Energy. It will get you crunk, George.
Going to the league.
That's right. So, guys, this is why you need to tune in every Tuesday night, because you don't know how crunk I'm going to get on screen.
Yes.
So, hey, let me ask you, while we're talking about the GHSA, I know this will never, ever happen because there's too many dollars at stake, but is it time for South and Middle Georgia, maybe even to include North Florida, to form a new association? And if so, what would that look like?
That's interesting. I haven't thought of that, but in business, Larry, and we've been in the similar industry for the last 20 something years.
Yeah.
They always seem to break us into I remember it's been called Palm Coast, but it would do that. It would encompass South Georgia, North Florida, and it would stop before you got into the Panhandle. So don't freak out, but down to at least I-75 and over to north of Jacksonville.
Right.
You can, I think they should look into what possibilities exist there with the school sizes and things like that, where you could bring in like a Madison County. That would certainly, they were about the same size school as Brooks, right?
Yeah.
And Thomasville for that matter. So it may alleviate some travel. Larry, with our local Christian Academy, Southside, we're practically lumped into an all Florida conference. They call it a conference instead of a region. Same thing. But my kids are actually in Jacksonville tonight. They're on their way home playing their soccer match down there. So to me, I don't know why you wouldn't. You could call it like they call it the Southeastern Christian Conference or something like that.
I know it would never happen, George, but now might be the best time ever, because Florida high school football classification is going through these major undulations right now. Because just last week, the Florida High School Association redid their classification system as well, starting next year, where they grouped they divided the metro city schools and suburban schools. So basically the vast majority of the metro schools are south of Orlando.
Yeah.
And then you've got some schools over in the Jacksonville area that are basically going to have to drive back and forth to or to basically play the playoff games and region games or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, you're going to have a lot of North and Central Florida schools down to Lake City. I wouldn't go any farther south than Lake City.
Right.
That may be interested in joining a South Georgia, North Florida type of association.
Our kids actually go down to the Gainesville area, and it's not as far as you think.
Yeah.
Particularly bordering state like Lowndes and Ware and Clinch and some of these, counties that are Thomas, Bainbridge, all these other folks. It wouldn't be crazy to think, because once you get over and hit 75 South, you're down there, and it's not too crazy. But
that's right.
It seems to me the closer you want to get a school parity wise in terms of size and things like that to make it fairer competition, the more you're going to have to willing to travel, and then vice versa. The more you want to have a close, calendar or schedule, the more you're going to have to be accepting of playing smaller or larger schools. It's a choice. You got to balance it out.
That's right. I wanted to show you something on the screen before we get out of here. We were talking about schedules a while ago, especially Region 17A. And for the Lowndes fans that are watching tonight, we'll go into this in more depth, more detail on Thursday nights around the Nation show. But I wanted to give you guys a sneak peek because it was officially released today. Even though I posted this earlier this week, it was still missing one game. But now that the schedule is complete, so it was officially released today. George, check this out. So let me make sure I can blow this up.
That's some interesting looking non-region schedule, huh?
Yeah. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Look at that, man. American Heritage. This is Lowndes' schedule for this year. American Heritage, which is a nationally prominent team down in Plantation, Florida. Then you got North Miami Beach. They're an okay team. Then you got an open week. No, I forgot. Gadsden County, Florida. That's going to be an easy win. Yeah. So the first three games, Lowndes is probably going to start 3-0. I'm counting American Heritage as a win.
Okay.
I think we can beat those guys. They're going to be a tough win. But I think here's why I think we're going to be. I interviewed their head coach on my other venture on the national HSFB.com a couple of weeks ago. And, they're one of these schools that have some fantastic athletes, but they're only going to bring about 45 to 50 players to Martin Stadium when they come. So that tells me they have a depth issue.
Sure.
So I think if we can keep that game close, I think we're going to beat them in the fourth quarter. So I'm going to count that as a win. So I think Lowndes starts off 4-0 because I'm going to count East Coweta as a win as well. We got to go up to Sharpsburg, Georgia, play East Coweta. And so we're going to be 4-0, I think, going into Grayson. That's going to be a tough game.
Yeah. Did they load up well this offseason, or do we know?
Well, we don't know yet.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
That's a wild card.
Let's just say for giggle's sake that Lowndes drops that game. So now we're 4-1.
4-1
going into Valdosta.
Well, not region play because is that Dunbar sandwiched in the middle of a couple region games?
Yeah, I mean, originally here's what happened. Originally, we had a private school out of Virginia, Life Christian Academy, that was going to be penciled in there on this date right here, I believe, 9:30. Okay. But they canceled. They pulled out. So that opened up that week, and this week was already open, right? It was scheduled to be an open week. Yeah. So we advertised these two dates, and Dunbar called and said, hey, we can field 10-14. So that's what we did.
So you guys have a 5-game run starting in October.
Yeah.
Through however far you make it in the playoffs.
Correct. So that's why I was
that's
why I was talking to Shane a while ago about depth, man. Depth is going to be an issue.
Yeah.
We graduated so many, George, we graduated so many players on that offensive side of the ball where I think but I'm convinced that we're going to have a really, really good offensive unit out there. I'm concerned about depth, especially given that the last 5 games heading into the playoffs with no open week before the playoffs start.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
now this North Miami, is this the same team? I'm looking at Valdosta. They have a North Miami.
It's 2 different teams, a North Miami Beach, and they have North Miami Senior High.
Senior. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. 2 different teams. I think I think North Miami Beach are the Chargers, and the North Miami Senior is, I can't remember their mascot.
I can't tell by the schedule. Okay. That just a quick one-off question there. But yeah, that is a gauntlet starting in October.
Yep.
All the way through, if you make it through December, you'll be playing every Friday, it looks like.
Yep. Other than that first game, you got that first game that's on a Saturday, and then you got this gauntlet, man. It's gonna be
that's
fun.
right. So that's a good catch. So American Heritage Saturday, is that televised? Is that going to be?
It's going to be live streamed. It's going to be a deal on live stream. Being streamed by a national provider called Flow Football. Flowfootball.com.
Okay. Gotcha.
So anyway, fun times, man. So starting next, that was a quick run through of the lounge schedule. Next week, George, we'll start taking a look at these other area schedules as well, because now just about everybody's got their schedule out, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's take a look at the Ware schedule next week. We'll throw Coffee up there. We'll throw another smaller school, maybe Thomasville up there.
Sure. Yeah, I noticed Thomasville's on Valdosta's schedule, so they've definitely are swinging at some big opponents.
Yeah, Valdosta's doing something different with their schedule this year. I don't quite understand it because they've got a couple of. I understand putting a small school on there to help fill out your schedule, but they've got a couple of small schoolers. I think Thomasville might be a scrimmage game, though.
You're right. It's on August 12th, so that's a scrimmage. But their second game after they've got Cook. Yeah. Which I think a lot of eyes are going to be on Cook this year. With their new coaching staff coming in, and got a lot of. I'm sure a lot of energy's going to follow that. Byron Slack and company. So yeah, and then Valdosta has that McEachern game a couple of weeks before region play. That'll be another interesting one to keep an eye on. I think Franklin Stevens, is he still their head coach up at McEachern?
He is.
I think he is as well. So that'll be an interesting matchup too. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, it's getting here close. It's already mid-March.
It's getting close.
Spring football tomorrow, it seems.
Yep. So speaking of time, it's time for us to get out of here and go get some dinner or something. So anyway, hey man, appreciate you hanging out with me tonight. Hopefully Cole and Justin will be able to join us again next week. Until then, man, have a great rest of the week. And you guys have a fantastic week. For George Braddock, I'm Larry Godwin. You guys have been watching the Pregame Blitz on Tuesday night. We'll catch you guys later. We're out. Hey, by the way, if you're a Wildcat fan, go Vikings. See ya.